Oh.
That Ezra, today, at least having fun. Hey everyone, welcome back to week 3 in our relationship series that we've been doing throughout the month of February. I've certainly enjoyed being on the channel, but I can't wait to leave.
Yeah, today is our last video together, and I just wanted to say thank you to you, Laura. Thank you so much for being so willing to be on the channel and for being for putting your whole heart into it. It really means a lot to me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. So today we're going to be talking on communication, but we've broken it down into 5 really tough conversations that we believe should be had before you enter marriage and then during marriage as well.
We had some of these conversations before we got married. We often have these conversations during our marriage now that we've been married for almost 10 years. And I think that these are conversations that have to be had. So we're going to go through 5 things that we feel are important to talk about. Courageous conversations, as Darren calls them, before and during marriage. And our first one is money. We're going to talk. You have to talk about money. Money is something that can be very, very difficult to talk about before and during marriage. You must talk about it. So what are some of the points that you feel like people should be discussing before marriage and while dating?
So I think while you're dating, leading up to marriage, when it comes to money, a couple of conversations you have to talk about is firstly where you're at. Okay, so you need to establish where you are at, where your partner's at financially, in terms of savings, in terms of debt, and of course, I think it's a very important one to ask how you earn your money. How do you earn your money? How does it work?
So I think it's very important to talk about money, where you're at, how do you manage your money? How will you manage your money as a couple if you were to get married? Those are hard conversations, but it's better to have it before, because yeah, if you decide this is not someone that you can gel with in terms of money, you can still walk out and it will be hard, but it's better than a divorce.
Yeah, I think money impacts marriage so much, and it's such a big part in marriage, you know. A lot of marriages fail because of money, and so it's so important that you speak about it before you enter marriage. And then once you are married, it's a conversation that you need to revisit all the time. You need to be speaking about it all the time. So what is our financial plan?
Yeah.
What are we working towards? How are we going to manage our money? Who's going to take the lead when it comes to managing certain aspects of our money as well?
Yeah, I think another thing that is really important to talk about is tithing. Are you a tither? Does your partner believe in tithing?
Yeah.
Will you guys be tithing together? Do you believe in the 10%? I think that's a very important conversation to have, and I feel like it would also be a make or break thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you are a firm believer in tithing and your partner's like, no, you can't give me money to the church, that's an important conversation to have. So tithing, and I think another thing that you could speak about if it's important to you is joint or separate accounts. How are you going to share your money? Do you share your money?
Yeah.
Who's paying for what? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the hard conversations to have, but conversations that you must have, because money, or the lack thereof, is really, there's nothing like money stress.
Yeah.
That stuff can age you. So have those conversations. Our second one is sex and intimacy before and after marriage. We don't believe in sex before marriage. Obviously, we waited for after we got married to have sex. So I think if you are a Christian or somebody that believes in waiting and believes that waiting is the right way to do it, if you are waiting and you are not married yet, one of the conversations that you need to have with your partner is about physical boundaries.
Yeah.
How far is too far? Are we kissing? I know there's people that wait to kiss. That's deep. I don't know. So we would have never been able to do that. But are we kissing? What is allowed? What's not allowed? Those are things that you must talk about while you're dating,
Yeah.
and if you're engaged. And also, what is your expectation within marriage? If you were to marry this person, what is your expectation of sex within the marriage?
Like, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, not just that, I listened to this podcast.
That's mostly that.
I listened to this podcast yesterday of this guy that was a self-proclaimed serial cheater, and had said that in his before he got married, him and his wife spoke about how often they would want to have sex, and he said he would want to have sex at least 3 times a week, and she said marriage is not about sex. So they got married, and she denied him, didn't want to have sex with him. And within the first year of marriage, he was cheating on her. And they were married for 6 years. And he said before he got married, he was the type that would say to his friends, "You're cheating on your wife. Why are you cheating on your wife? Because you guys should be sleeping together." And he said his friend said to him, "You'll understand when you get married." And he got married, and his wife was like, she didn't want to have sex. He wanted to have sex, and he started off with masturbation. She found out that he was masturbating, and he was like, "Well, how do you feel about it?" Because he said he felt really ashamed. And she was like, "Well, do you?" Because she didn't want to have to make that her problem. So I think if they went in and she was just like, "I don't want to have sex 3 times a week," and he was like, "Having sex more than 3 times a week is a make or break for me,"
He could have
decided to not go into it and not have cheated and broken himself and broken this marriage. So it's a really important discussion to have before marriage. And granted that getting into marriage and the reality of it can be very, very different to what you see in your head and what you think you desire, because everyday life can be mundane and being tired, and if you have kids into it, it's a whole nother ball game. But I think if you guys are on the same page, it can really make things a lot easier for you.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that, and it probably leads us to the next point about sex within marriage, but is to talk about expectations and the frequency of it as well. So how often do you expect it? How often do you want it? Do you need to have your Kellogg's every day?
Wow.
I think it's also important to, let me say it this way. For some people, this could be a very important point, and for some people it may not. And that's why for this one, I feel like if it's important to you or to your spouse, then you need to talk about sexual history and your status. All right. So if you feel like you need to disclose any illnesses or STDs or anything like that, then it's very important. If that's make or break for you, then you need to talk about that before marriage as well, because you don't want something creeping up later on within your marriage.
Yeah, that's really important. If it's important to you, you must speak about it. If you don't know if it's important to your partner or your potential partner, ask them and see if it's a conversation. You know how the conversation will go.
There was a really nice survey we did. I think it was called like Before You Do or something like that, with like hundreds and hundreds of questions that you need to, and we literally took a day out before we got married and we just sat and went through that survey. And so it would be one where I would complete the survey alone, Arlene would complete the survey alone, then we get together and we do the couple section of it, and then you discuss all of the answers. So it was a really good one, and it just got in-depth conversation going. Right?
Yeah, sex within marriage. Some of the discussions that you should have is like, what are your desires and fantasies? What is it that you want from your husband or from your wife? I think for men, you can speak about it, but it was like, it can be tricky because I know a lot of men are like, I don't want to treat my wife like a hoe, even though I desire this kind of thing. Like, you don't want to disrespect your wife. Maybe she'd find it disrespectful, that kind of thing. And I think it's dangerous if you don't have those kind of conversations, because then you might find yourself looking for it somewhere else. Especially if you have a sexual experience outside of a marriage. You know, not everybody gets married a virgin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to say, I've heard about this, because sometimes it literally is as naive as that. I was as naive as that. So it's like, I heard about this. What do you think about this? Can we try that? Or I thought about this, or I dreamt about this, and so, but it also helps to create just that safe space that we always talk about. And so it's important to talk about,
Frequency. How often do you want to be intimate with your partner? That's really important. How often?
Okay, the other thing that is very important is frequency. So you need to talk about how often you're expecting to be intimate, and also sometimes there's a need to talk about it so that you can actually schedule it, because it needs to be a priority.
Yeah, definitely.
Put it on the calendar.
And boundaries as well. Boundaries, if you are not comfortable with doing something that your partner wants to do, you have to have the liberty to say, no, I'm not comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
Because like we say, your partner has to be your safest place. The next thing that we will talk about is kids.
Kids and family.
Kids and family. So before you get married, I think it's very important to talk about kids. Do you want kids? Because I know that there are some people that don't want kids. Do you desire to have kids? How many kids do you want to have? When do you want to have these kids? How quickly after each other do you want to have these kids? And contraceptives.
Yeah, or family planning.
Family planning. You need to talk about that as well. I think another thing that is important, very important to talk about, is how you were raised, and
how are we going to raise our children?
how do you want to raise your children? What parenting techniques? What kind of discipline do you believe in? Those are really important things.
And then another one is education.
Yeah.
How do you want to educate your children? What is your desire for them? Do you want to send them to public schools or private schools? All of those things are very important to talk about before you even have children.
Yeah.
And then once the kids come, you literally just take it day by day, roll with the punches, make sure they stay alive and they eat, and then you should be okay, because there is no video and no manual that can prepare you for this journey. Don't believe what any of the experts tell you. You will only know when you get there. Okay, but for real, it is something that needs to be revisited often.
Yes, you have to revisit, because once your reality changes and you actually have a child, your heart changes, and the way that you do things, the way that you do things and want to do things will definitely change.
Also, I think the reason we're laughing is because we have got two boys with their own personalities.
Yeah.
And it's like, we thought we were going to be these parents that had this disciplined plan and program of every time the kids are naughty, we're going to take them to the bathroom because that's a place of cleansing. It hasn't happened once. Yeah, and so you adjust to their personality, and you end up, sometimes you even end up disciplining your children differently in order to accommodate their personalities and where they're at. And so it's very important to talk about that all the time. So another very important conversation that needs to be had before and during marriage is about how are we going to approach it when we feel like our family is complete. So family planning, or deciding who's going to be the one that goes for a procedure. Okay, do I go for a vasectomy? Do you go for a hysterectomy? Do you tie tubes? What is it? So what is the plan for once we decide that our family is complete? Very, very important discussion.
Yeah. And another thing that we've learned since we've had kids is that it's so important to stay on the same team. You have to stay on the same team, you have to be on the same page, because if you don't, your kids can very easily manipulate you and pin you up against each other to get their own way. And kids can be really manipulative. I think anyone that has a child can testify to that. So you just have to be on the same page, have to be on the same team. And that's why I don't want another child. Because if there's more of them than there is of us,
then we are outnumbered.
Then we are outnumbered.
Good point. Yeah, guys.
So yeah, and again, we want to reiterate the education. Because once you have kids, your financial situation might have changed. Once you see the cost of school fees, you might change your mind. Things are really, really expensive. So those are important conversations that you guys have to constantly revisit and constantly have to have. So our fourth point is dreams and aspirations.
Yes, big one. Very important to talk about what are your dreams individually and as a couple. And also talk about which of those dreams are non-negotiable, which of them are deal breakers. So, because sometimes what happens is once you get married, you have to let go of some of the dreams that you had for yourself as an individual. Not because you have to, but sometimes it just works out that way, you know. And so, but it's very important to know what are the ones that I'm absolutely set on, that I can't negotiate on, because that could really, really end up impacting the marriage quite negatively if you are so upset, because you could end up resenting me for some of the dreams that you feel like you had to give up because of me.
Yeah, that's good. And I think also after you have marriage, after you have kids especially, because kids are game changers, is to revisit the conversation about dreams. Revisit the conversation about dreams. What dreams do you have now? What dreams do you have for each other? What dreams do you have for your family? Talk about traveling, talk about that kind of thing, because your life changes so much. You go through seasons in marriage, so it's important to revisit these conversations and talk about different dreams. And I think also just as people and as a person, as time goes on, you change and you grow and you mature, so your dreams will definitely change. You as a person will change, your aspirations will change, and it's important to discuss those things. If you have a business, what are your desires and your goals for your business? What are your dreams for your business?
And so before marriage, you want to be looking to see, is this person somebody that I can accomplish these dreams with?
Yes.
Are they for my dreams? Do they believe in my dreams? Because there's nothing worse than getting married to somebody who knew your dreams before you got married, and then gets there, and then eventually they're like, you're always chasing these pipe dreams, and yet they knew that what they were getting into.
The last one, our fifth point, is having conversations about past trauma and triggers. If you are somebody that comes from, I think everybody has trauma, everybody has triggers. I think if you don't think that you've got trauma, you might have to do a bit more digging to figure out and realize what that trauma is and what it could be. But having those conversations is going to make it easier for your partner to understand you, for you to understand each other, and to know how to approach things, what things are out of bounds, how to not overstep certain boundaries. If you know the past about a person, obviously not the entire past, but if you know key and pivotal things about a person, it's going to make it easier for you to understand that person and also kind of handle that person when it comes to certain situations. So I think it's important to talk about the past, about trauma. If you, someone like me that went through a traumatic event where I lost my parents or something, I had to share with Darren. And we had to kind of dig through and unpack, and it wasn't something that we unpacked in one conversation. We unpack it all the time. We speak about things. Something will happen and it will remind me of something that happened with my parents or that happened in my past, and it's just a conversation that is always happening and constantly happening. And I think another thing is triggers. Speaking about triggers, things that trigger you. If you are triggered by screaming and shouting, and your partner is always screaming and shouting at you, it's not going to be conducive to your communication and the way that you guys understand each other. So if I know that Darren doesn't do well with sarcasm, I have to do my best to not be sarcastic with him, because then it breaks him down and it breaks down our communication. So those are, I think, very small examples. I mean, mine is not a small example, but I mean, the thing about triggers is a small example, and it's things that you need to talk about to understand each other better.
I think it's also important, with this point, it's also important that you understand how you deal with trauma and triggers and where you are at. So I saw this thing pop up on social media recently, and it asked, so if you were standing in the road and a truck was coming towards you, what would be your reaction? And my reaction was, put my head on my hands on my head and say, oh my goodness, I'm about to die. And so you have to choose an option, and the option that Arlene chose was get out of the way as quickly as you can. And when we analyzed the responses, it came down to, I'm somebody who sweeps trauma under the rug, who doesn't really deal with trauma or deal with confrontation, which is very true about my personality. And she's much more confrontational. She deals with things. And so by me understanding, okay, this is how I actually am or deal with things, made me reflect a little bit more on how I've dealt with things that have happened to me in the past, but also help me understand her better.
Definitely. So I think if you understand your partner, it's easier to love them better. I think it's easier to, that's actually the phrase I'm looking for. It's easier to love your partner well and to love them better. But these are some of the conversations that we'd like to encourage you to have. It has been a great month of sharing relationship stuff. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched, to everyone who's commented. I had a lot of people DMing me with, oh, that was so great. We enjoyed the video when you said this and this, and I'm like, Jade is one of those people. Jade always messages me. I'm like, go and comment on the video on YouTube. So please leave a comment. I love hearing from you here on YouTube, but it also just helps push the video out to other people that would be interested in this kind of content. So thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe if you do like the channel, if you do like the video that we put out. And next week I will be speaking to somebody about being single.
Oh.
And about the journey of being single. And Darren's not going to be with us next week. This is our last sit down video together for the month of February, but we'll definitely do more in the future if you're up to it. If there's anything that you want us to talk about that we feel like we could speak about from our own experiences, we will definitely address it. So whatever you want to hear about, let us know in the comments and we'll see what we can do for you.
Alright, so before we end it off, this wouldn't be appropriate to end without a challenge. And so today's challenge is, are you ready? Do you know what it is? Okay, so we're gonna see if I can get this red lipstick off her lips.
Ah! No.
Okay, let's see how long we can.
But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching for the last couple of videos, and we'll see you in the next one, the one for the singles. Bye.